appreciate that. And to everyone that has attended, you have given amazing commodities. One, you've given up 45 minutes of your time, and I know that time, when wisely used and appropriately linked to in terms of your personal productivity, is equal to money. I'm aware of that. Number two, you're giving me your focused attention, and I'm going to endeavor throughout the session today to ensure that you and your focus and your attention are there. The third thing, my job, the commodity that I'm bringing, is that I am going to be able to facilitate not just memory work, but I'm going to facilitate integration work. My request to you is, would you please grab a piece of paper and a pen, because I'd love you to be able to just integrate. At the end of the session, we will be sending you the slides that you see on the flip chart here. I don't work with death by PowerPoint. And so we'll be sending you those as well, plus the recording at the end of the session and the special offering for our challenge that we're going to invite you to consider. I welcome you to the Neuroscience of Self Mastery, being able to become and be beyond where you are now. So if A is where I am now and B is where I want to be, then B must always be better than where A is. Wouldn't you agree? So I'd like you on a piece of paper on the bottom left-hand corner or side of the paper, just write the word A, that's where I am now, and then B is where I want to be. And let's just pay attention to a few things. So right at the top of the page here, my version, I never was artistic, but here is an apple seed and here is an oak seed. They both have dynamic, latent, natural ability. And the reason for me getting my first PhD honorary awarded to me by a university in the United States was because I helped design this instrument, your dynamic, natural latent abilities, and I worked in 32 African-speaking countries, and I coached and mentored executives, board members, directors, African royalty, and it was because of that work that I was recognized in Africa by this international university, and they bestowed very humbly upon me an honorary doctorate. My academic doctorate is a different story. But when one asks the question, when you just look at that seed and you hold it in your hand, it doesn't look like much. And I'm wondering what you are asking yourself when you look at yourself in the mirror. Do you come to a conclusion, I'm not much? Do you come to a conclusion, I'm not that great? Do you come to a conclusion, maybe there might be more? And how you come to that conclusion is very important. But the question I want to ask you is, when you look at those seeds, could you tell me, just by looking at the seed, how many more apple seeds are there in an apple, and how many more oak seeds are there in the one oak seed? The only way to find that is to plant it. So the principle of life is that if you want to become and you want to grow towards becoming your 2.0 version and your 3.0 version in your lifetime, you need to be planted. There's, I haven't met a leader yet, and I've had 36,668 plus minus one-on-one hours with leaders. And in every one of those leaders' story, without a doubt, there is a story of I was planted, I was covered over, I went through the crucible of leadership, I went through a painful experience. So at no time do we ever have life without some form of self-dying in our ego. Now, I know that the pop psychology books go, well, all you have to do is you can think and you can believe it. That's chicken poo, because neurology doesn't work like that. My focus is on neuroscience, and everything that I'm telling you can be backed up scientifically with peer review, scientific information. So it's not because I've just read a book on neuroscience or an article. I have two neurosurgeons. One is Jewish doctor, and he specializes in immunology, neuroimmunology. So he works with the immune system. And during COVID, none of his patients died, and he didn't use the normal protocols that the cronies in the United States and all over the world and here in South Africa were demanding everybody had to use. Now, when we look at this part, there's a, like, for potential to grow, it needs to be covered and it needs a time for germination. But the moment it starts to germinate, we then have, it grows into a tree. And asking the question, how many seeds are in that one, we start looking here and we're going, well, let's count how many we possibly can on this tree, because here it reproduces itself. In other words, there's a multiplication capacity in your potential, in your team's potential. The mistake you're going to make as a leader is that you're going to focus this lecture only on your team and not on yourself. I went through a burnout experience, and part of that burnout experience, I made a discovery that I was busy equipping people, I was spending time with people, I was growing people, but I never grew myself. I loved to help other people learn to love themselves, but I didn't love myself first. I learned a very, very expensive lesson that I cannot give that which I do not have first. So how many apple seeds are there in an apple? Well, it's determined by how many apples are going to grow on this tree in season. And if I had to cut every one of those apples out, I then can, because of the potential factor of one seed, I can eventually have a whole orchid. So the version of my vision is bigger than the seed. So my potential, or my optimization vision of myself, where I want to be in the top right-hand corner, starts with small beginnings. And there was a Hebrew prophet and writer that said, do not be afraid of small beginnings. And some people think, no, I want the big picture immediately. Well, it just doesn't work that way. Everything starts with a foundation. Building starts with one spade being shoved into the earth and one heap of earth pulled out at a time. Then eventually it's machines that dig. Then eventually it's one brick upon a time, upon each other. So everything that we have in life is one upon a time, laid carefully, laid based on a very strategic plan. So when we're talking about maximizing our life, at no stage can we look at life and go, okay, so it's all going to happen automatically and it's all going to happen every way all the time. So when I pay attention to where I am right now, I'm looking at this reality and saying, my life and my journey of nearly 3 decades of working with leaders is a journey of one day at a time. So my past, everyone has got one, and you're not a prisoner of your past. Neither are you a victim of your past. You are a pioneer of your future. Not a victim of the past, you're a pioneer of your future. Where I am right now, there's a certain amount of satisfaction. But within that satisfaction are two things that I'd like you to answer right now, and that is, what are the two things, this T with the FX factor, what are the two things that you're tolerating in your life right now? What are the things that you are giving permission to allow to be, allow to become, allow to pay attention to. So what are my 2 tolerations? So it might be, I'm tolerating my to-do list to continue to go on and on. I'm tolerating people to continue to interrupt me. I'm tolerating asking low prices for my product. I'm tolerating whatever. What am I tolerating in my team and in myself? The second question I have for you is F to the power of Rx, and that is, what are the 2 things that are frustrating you right now? So what are the 2 things that are frustrating you in terms of, now frustration is like an internal irritation. It's like a yucky, and it really gets to you. A little hint, when we are looking at optimizing myself, and I want to be the new me over here, and B is always better, and B is a process of becoming. Neurology says the best way to set a goal is don't set a goal called a SMART goal that says it must be specific and measurable and time-related and et cetera, measurable. Rather, take SMART and turn your goal into what does the new me look like? So you create an identity goal. You don't create a busy goal or a to-do goal. The other stuff comes. The first thing I need to ask is, what are my new skills that I've got here that will help me to achieve the millions that I'm dreaming of here? What are my new leadership skills here that I am dreaming of to take people from here to there? So I want to encourage you to pay attention, first of all, if you want to optimize your life, to build on the new me. The other factor that's critical in our neurology is our neurology does not enjoy being driven. So the moment the neurology goes into driven, it becomes anxious. It becomes, oh my goodness, this is now, I'm very anxious about it. I'm very concerned about it, etc. And I've got to draw something here in the top right-hand corner that will magnetize me. So my question to you is, take a deep breath and breathe out. Another deep breath and breathe out. What's in your vision that attracts you? What's in your vision that magnetizes you? There was a Jewish prophet who lived 2,000 years ago, and what was in his life was written by one of the rabbis about him, and he said, who for the joy that was set before him endured everything that he had to go through. So what brings you joy in your vision? What joy set before you is what is magnetizing you. I'd like you to take a moment and just think about that. So your business dream, your office dream, the dream for your team. I know there are numbers in it, and I know there's amounts in it, and there's margins in it because it's business. But what gives you joy about that? And if your business doesn't give you joy, then it's a very frightening place to be indeed. So here I am, and I'm paying attention to my future. Let me tell you the story about the difference between a groove and a grave. And the difference between groove and a grave is, the only difference is the depth. So people in your team or you might find yourself in a groove, or some of you might find yourself in a well-developed groove called a grave. Once upon a time, there were two friends. They went to the bar, they drank a lot, and they became a little bit inebriated and became more and more intoxicated the more they drank, and that's the way alcohol works. And as they become more and more intoxicated, the one guy decides, he says, I'm going to go home now, and he says goodbye to his friends, and he says goodbye to everybody else, and he walks out, staggers out. I can remember when I was doing, this is like a soapy now, I'm interrupting with an advert. When I was doing my honors in sociology, I remember working in Jeppe in Johannesburg, and I came outside, and there was this hotel, and this guy came out as drunk as the Lord, and he held on to the lamppost that was close by. It was interesting to watch how he, like a corkscrew, went down to the bottom and sat down. I went and sat next to him, and I put my hand on his shoulder, and I said, "Friend, how can I help you?" And he kind of focused on me and looked at me, and he said, "Please pray for me." And I thought, okay, prayer was natural to me at that time. And my opening words were, "Dear God, would you please help this man? He's drunk right now." And the next moment he nudges me with his elbow and he goes, "Don't tell him I'm drunk." So in reality, it's like we don't want to accept some of our reality. We want to give it another name. So this drunk guy goes, he takes a shortcut through the graveyard. Lo and behold, a newly dug grave. He falls into it. He clamors and digs holes and tries to get out and screams and shouts and tries all of his efforts. Eventually, in the moonlight, he looks around, accepts his status, and he tucks himself into the corner. And as he tucks himself into the corner, he says, "Help will come in the morning." The second guy, his friend, has been drinking more, so he's more inebriated, and he too, as the joke goes, he goes through the same graveyard, and as the story goes in the joke, he falls into the same grave. Unbeknown of each other, the second guy does the same thing. He starts digging holes, clamoring, shouting, screaming, coughing, splurting, and he wakes the other guy up, who's got his collar up, and first guy that fell in focuses in the moonlight, and he looks. And one of the things that drunk people tend to do is they're most helpful. So he clears his throat and he goes, "You won't get out of here," he says. And the guy did. All he needed was a little bit of a challenge. So whenever we are in a groove or a grave, or even in the comfort of our comfort zone, we need to be challenged. For potential to grow, it needs to be challenged, otherwise it remains dormant. So let me take you into neurology. So here's a neuron, and it is capacitated with atomic energy. So it's neural energy that flows. There's also electrical energy, there's chemical energy, there's food state energy. And in this synapses, which is this little part, the energy flows down this, which is called an axon. And so the energy flows down there, and then it has to jump across to go there and then go there into that neuron. And that journey there is called a neurological pathway. And the jump must take place. That's why I don't call what I do a webinar where you just get 7 points to help you. I use the synapses, because this space here is where there's energy, there's intelligence, there's creativity, there's capacity to grow genetics. So you have epigenetics taking place here, and you can your body literally grows genes, which eventually grows a cell, which eventually grows an organ, etc., etc. There are 87 million neurons in our brain, and then these axons, which act like tree roots, which you saw on the previous slide, there's 78 billion of them. Now, if we had to join them all up, plus all the blood vessels in the brain, this electricity travels at the speed of about 130 to 230 kilometers an hour. So it's a huge speedway. And the brain uses about 20% of the blood and uses that to cool down the system. But if we were to take all the vessels within the brain, we would then be able to go around the earth a minimum of about 5 times. So now, here we are, and we're looking, and we are paying attention to where we are right now. It's 19 minutes, and I ask you just to put your pen down and sit back in your chair, pull your shoulders back with me, just pull them back, and breathe in, and breathe out. Breathe in and breathe out. Shrug your shoulders as you close your eyes. Pull them back, feel as if there's an orange that you're squeezing in between your shoulder blades. Do this with your fingers. Stretch them open, closed. Breathe in. And if you have water close by, I invite you to take a sip of water with me. What have we just done? We've had what is known as a neurological rest. Whenever you start a conversation, whenever you start a presentation, make sure that your timer goes on for 19 minutes, and then give people at least a minute and a half of silence where you get them to stretch and relax and drink some water. And in that silence, the subconscious wants to do filing. If I fail to give those 19 minutes 2-minute rest, my subconscious goes, oh, okay, so you are disrespectful to energy. I will now interrupt your brain, and I'll take away concentration and retention and the ability to weave into memory, and I'll interrupt it for 11 minutes. So for a speaker who goes for 45 minutes, after 19 minutes, everybody in the room, their brain goes, blah, 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 blah. Even if you're an anointed preacher and you spit at people in the first row, don't care. They're not going to listen because their brain is not engaged. Okay, so we take another deep breath. And as we breathe out, so we're talking about mastery and brilliance, that it's a journey, one step at a time. And in my neurology, I need to work together with my neurology for me to be brilliant, because inside my neurology are two amazing things. Inside my neurology has been programmed interconnectedness, the ability to connect with the outer world, to connect with people around me, to connect with myself, to connect with my spouse, my partner, my family, my children. I have also got interpersonal intelligence as one of the 13 intelligences in my brain. So the reality is, why do you think of self-mastery as being only to do with yourself? I'll tell you why. Because that's your ego telling you that you can do it all by yourself. When we talk to people who are millionaires and billionaires and they say, I am a self-made millionaire, I'm going, BS. You can choose whatever words you want to put in that acronym. BS. You know why? Because whenever you see a tortoise balancing high on top of a telephone pole, and it looks like this, only one conclusion you can come to. That tortoise never got to the top of the pole by itself. You are a leader and a manager, and the reason why you are in your office where you are, you never got there by yourself. There were lecturers that gave you information. There were mentors that gave you skills. There were team people that assisted you with your goals so that you could look good at the end of the year, and so that you could get the praise and that you could become the leader that you are today and the manager that you are today. You're not going anywhere alone. Impossible. So here I am in my comfort zone, and I'm going into this journey, and I can choose to do it alone. You can choose to go alone. Anybody can choose to go alone. But it's a lonely road. And the road is not a straight line. So the road to success is never a straight line. Reality over here is what causes all sorts of stuff. A friend of mine was the main chief pilot, and he trained in SAA, that's in the day when they existed. And he was a German friend, and he said to me with precision, he says, Bill, you need to know, we were on our way to London, and he invited me to the cockpit. In those days, you were allowed. And he said, did you know 80% of the time, we're not going according to the flight plan? We submitted a flight plan, it was a straight line, we're going to go from here to London. But now we are about 40 degrees off course. And the reason for it, he says, look out the window, there's an electrical storm up ahead. Our radar has picked it up, and we have to fly now west, and then we're going to fly north, and then we're going to go, etc. So flying is never, and the only time that he is according to flight plan is on takeoff and on coming in for landing. That's when they zero in and they come in for landing. He says, then that's the precise moment, and we are doing exactly as planned. So life is not all about having everything planned and I've got it all together. You can plan as much as you like. Reality will challenge it. I've worked in business for nearly 3 decades, and people come up with strategy, and I've discovered that culture, which is led by leaders, eats strategy for breakfast every single day. So your culture can destroy everything. The way that you talk to people, the way that you relate to people will destroy absolutely everything. But for me to be optimized and optimizing in the journey to become my 2.0, I need to acknowledge the fact I cannot do this alone. So in becoming masterful, so here we've got the black circle here, dotted line, which is called my comfort zone. In my comfort zone, there's a part, and you can draw this for you yourself to go, what's boring for me in my occupation? What's boring for me? What's like, I know how to do it? For me, it's admin. Oof. It's like, where do I need to scrape up energy? Where do I need to go and excite myself to say, get excited about this, go and do this now, get and do it with energy and what. And yet there are people who are gifted in administration. There are parts of your job and what you do which fall into mundane. In other words, I'm good at it, but it doesn't create an ignition of passion for me. Then there's a section in my comfort zone which I'm very good at and best at. And that's called my interests. So I'm very good. It awakens me. I feel to attend meetings about this. I enjoy talking about this. I enjoy reading about this. I enjoy going to meetings about this. I'll go and watch TED Talks on this. And that's what I'm good at and best at. But then there's a section within me in which I become what is known as an expert. And I do it literally without thinking. So whenever I find a person, so in my expert, there was a guy who wrote a book and he said, for you to become an expert in anything, you need to do the same thing 10,000 hours after each other, repetitively. My challenge on that is, if you're not improving every hour, if you're not improving and learning something new, tweaking something differently in that next hour, then you are repetitive and you're going back into the groove and you're not becoming brilliant. You're becoming back to the good to best. That's where you'll go back. You always feature going backwards. Careful for calling a person an expert, because an X is a has-been and a spurt is a drip under pressure. But here's this dividing line here. So this is what I call your convincing strategy. And when you Google comfort zones, that's not drawn in because they don't know neurology. And you've got a convincing strategy that's built into your consciousness. And then this green space over here is called potential. This is you start learning from when you make new discoveries. So I become an expert, but the moment I want to learn something new, over here is where I find some anxiety, I find some retinence, I find the handbrake version on me, things switch on here that don't normally switch on, because here in my expert version, I'm doing fantastic, but there's this potential that's pulling me. So it's pulling me, here it is here, my future is pulling me and magnetizing me. So there's more to a growth and a comfort zone. So there are levels of competence and there are levels of consciousness. So looking at these levels, at the bottom, I don't know what I do not know. And that is the biggest challenge for me as an executive coach when I am trying to sell and I'm attempting to influence executives, because their ego, this is where a huge amount of ego plays, that they're saying, I don't care about what I don't know. What I don't know is not affecting me. And they begin to rest on their laurels. They rest on their skills. They rest on the last 10 years that they've achieved their targets. They've increased by 10% each year or 4% each year. It's been exciting, tra-la-la, and off they go. And they rest on their laurels. So the ego will not allow you to become explorative. The ego hates an adventurer. The ego detests wanting to learn more. The ego goes, don't go near that. It means that you have to admit, you have to put your hand up and say, I need help. I want you to take your right hand and lift your right hand up and just put it up. And as you put it up, I want you just to close your eyes and just say these words in your mind. I need help. Say it again. I need help. Say it again. I need help. And just pause for a moment to feel kinesthetically, what do you feel and where do you feel it? Are you okay with it? Are you really looking for help? What price would you pay? Because success over here at the top, anywhere in the top right-hand page of success, there's always a price you have to pay. So I've met business people and religious leaders of huge organizations, and they're amazingly successful. But immediately as a coach, I ask the question, at what cost? What's it costing you to be successful? What's it costing you to follow that amazing vision that you want 1 million people to follow you? What's it costing you to have it all? And then when I meet their wives, and I meet their spouses, and I meet their children, and I look at their relationship, I'm going, okay, you don't need to tell me anything. The interpersonal is costing you. And but the price of getting successful is too tasteful and wonderful to be able to go. Now, I'll get to relationships later. So I don't know what I don't know, and that's called unconscious incompetence. I don't know. Well, I know when I say it that I can't fly a spaceship. I can't transport myself through time and space. But the fact that I'm saying it means I'm conscious about it, but I'm incompetent to be able to do it. But there's stuff that I don't know that I don't know. I don't know about the future. I don't know who's going to resign next, where the next virus is going to come from. I don't know that. Nobody knows. Only the people that invent them. So then the next level is I become consciously incompetent. So here I don't know. I'm 5 years old. I'm going, Daddy, I want to drive the car. And I sit and I go, brrr, and all of that. But I'm unconsciously incompetent. I can't drive the car, no matter what I do. But then I get older and I realize I am now consciously aware that I can't drive the car. And that's called conscious incompetence. I'm now aware, and I make a transition from unawareness into being aware, become more conscious. Then I give myself permission and I move into this space where it's conscious, where I become competent, and that's called conscious competence. So it's an ongoing journey here. It's where I learn skills and knowledge. I become wise. People are mentoring me. This is the space of coaching and training. But coaching is far different to training. And then I move into this place where I know it so well that I don't even need to think about it. But here's a beautiful thing, and this is called flow state. So flow state, I can already have in this level below. A flow state is where I am in a state of mind where what I'm doing is absolutely enjoyable, absolutely intriguing, absolutely, and I'm absolutely connected, And I'm absolutely thrilled. It's like space and time disappear. That's called a flow state. Now, you can go and take yourself neurologically into a flow state. And that's what I'm wanting to be able to challenge you in our challenge at the end of this presentation. So here is unconscious competence, where I'm unaware that I do it so well. I get in the car, it's automatic, I put it into reverse, I watch it, I'm going backwards, I'm aware of what I'm watching, I'm aware of the space, I'm doing it without thinking. I don't have a logbook. It's a little different when pilots are flying from one place to a second place. At every place, they have to open up the log and they have to go check. Is that working? Is that working? Is that working? Thank God that they've got that checklist, because if they don't have that checklist and we go and no, we'll rely on your unconscious competence, they're going, no. This machine I'm driving is like $300 million, and the lives, 300 people's lives, is, you can't calculate that. So I cannot afford to go unconsciously incompetent. But the moment they hit a storm, their expertise comes into play and they perform unconscious competence. So then it's like, okay, I'm aware. They go into the state where their intuitiveness works, where their intuition, where their creativity, where their stored up skills and memory come into play, and that's what happens. So we want to, again, pay attention. I want to become me version 2.0. I identify my success in terms of a person, not in terms of goals, of money, etc., etc. That'll be secondary over here. What's my new ID in terms of my new DNA? What new skills, what knowledge, experience, and wisdom do I need over here to become a master at whatever I want to be? Then I'm coming back here, and here's the interesting thing in our neurology. What wakes up that version there wakes up here on the inside of us in a space in our neurology where they have picked it up. Scientifically, it's called the space of yearning. So there's this place where my being knows what it wants, knows exactly what it wants, and it agitates us in our consciousness and says, this is what I'm wanting you to become. This is what I'm wanting you to do. This is what I'm wanting you to be. And that yearning we find only in meditation. You don't find this cognitively. So here is a space where you go into contemplative yearning and contemplating meditation. Then we go on a cognitive journey where we need to learn to give ourselves permission. And in giving myself permission, I then also realize I've got to take a risk and I've got to create this little thing called an action plan. Why? Because my neurology actually asks for it. You wake up in the morning, your neurology says, so what are you going to do? You're going to lie in bed all day? You go, no. So what are you going to do first? Okay, I'm going to go to the bathroom first. Neurology says, and then I'm going to make myself some tea. And while you're lying in the bed, the agitation in our consciousness works and says, so when are you going to get your butt out of bed and get up and go and do what you are thinking of doing? And then it says, how long will it take to get there? What do you need to do to get there? And then it says, what does the coffee look like? You make the coffee, and the moment of enjoying the coffee. So the brain wakes you up not so that you can make a cup of coffee. The brain wakes you up for this. That feeling. That's why people buy. Neuroselling, we train salespeople that that's what you need to focus on. It's what your product gives people, that kinesthetic, emotive feeling, why they come again and again and again. So now we create this thing. It's easy. Let's just create an action plan. We're going on a hike. We look at the map, but here's the reality. When you're on the hike, you come to this huge wake-up call. The map is not equal to the territory. That little short line there that says 8 kilometers is 8 kilometers from this peak to that peak. And it's downhill, and there's snakes, and there's all animals and baboons, and that's not on the map. So the map and the territory are never the same. And that's why it's good to go with someone. So going alone, you have to be very, very courageous to be able to handle all that reality. But here's what happens. Now your latest enemy wakes up, and your enemy is you. It's called your ego. The ego is different to self-image. The ego is called self-importance. So my ego says, you know what? Ego doesn't like change. So ego says, I'm now going to come up and I'm going to remind you of other people that are watching you and you failed before. The inner critic switches on and you hear that voice very clearly. You won't do it. You'll never do it. You can't do it. And you'll hear excuses. You've tried, hasn't worked before. Come on, who do you think you are? You don't have the intellectual property. You don't have the money. You don't have the drive. You don't have the capacity. Then you play blame games, and we blame the ANC, and if we're dyslexic, the CNA, and then we blame God, and we blame our mother-in-law, and we blame our forefathers, our 5 fathers, and our 6 fathers, and then unlimited our limiting beliefs. So that's LIM, not UM. Our limiting beliefs are those belief structures that convince us so convincingly that no, you'll never do it, you'll never make it, you'll never understand maths for as long as you live. And those things are things that I cannot work through alone. Impossible. Unless you've got a huge top right-hand corner that's magnetizing you, and you've got huge self-discipline over here, and there's less than 1.8% of the population of people that are in that particular scenario. So now we go, here I am now. I now need to make a decision. So I need support. And that support helps support my mindset. This support helps me to create habits and rituals over a period of 62 days. So Dr. Caroline Leaf, in her book, has a wonderful cognitive process on 62 days, and we're going to look at that journey and pay attention to it. But even although we have got support, we're still dealing with self-delusion. You've got a lot of that. We're still dealing with self-fantasy versus sanity and focus. And on the 62-day challenge, we will teach you how to use the neurological areas of the brain that create a huge amount of focus and that help us to learn, unlearn, adapt, adjust, align, and learn to become anti-fragile. So if you're going to want to become magnificent, if you want to become optimized totally, then I want to challenge you. And the first 15 people that send me an email, they will get it at this price of 20 Rand a day for 63 days. So you can work out that's the investment. If you believe you're worth that investment, it means we'll have 2 mind gatherings, and every single day you'll be getting help and support. Every single week you'll be getting meditation, you're getting ebooks, and we'll have masterminds. On the 62 days, we'll have 2 masterminds per month. So there'll be 4 masterminds, and you're going to make an investment of 63 times 20, and you can work it out. That's for the first 10 to 15 people. After that, the price is going to go up. So if you send me an email to bill.price@me.com, and you'll do it at your own time, we'll create the times so that we are not messing around with your program and at your convenience. And I want to walk a journey with you, support you in every way that I can. as an executive coach because I can say this: I have seen dreams come true. I've watched an executive when he reaches and she reaches her Everest. And I've watched them and I said, so what does it feel like? And the one director said to me the other day, when I stood on the top, literally on Everest, I looked around and I realized I was only halfway there because I had to come down. So in the journey, you'll make some amazing discoveries, but you never get up a mountain without a guide. And I want to be your guide for the next 63 days. You've got 5 days in which to make up your mind. We'll send you all the information that your first step in your action plan is to say, I'm committed, I'm going to give time, effort, and I'm going to commit myself financially into this journey. And it's about a quarter of the price, less than a quarter of the price. And you send me your email and I will reply and we'll get the journey started. I'm here to help you to become masterful. Thank you.